My people, what's going on? Fantasy football families again. Eugene, welcome to Off the Line Fantasy Football Podcast. Like I said, I'm Eugene. I'm one of the hosts of the show. If this is your first time listening to us, we thank you. We thank you for giving us your time to take a listen to what we got going on. You can find me on Twitter at Fantasy Genes. That's GENES. Also, you can find our official Twitter handle at Off the Line FF. On this pod, we like to talk all things fantasy, analyze certain players and their situations, have a few laughs, have a couple jokes, all in hopes of you understanding what we got, explaining to y'all in a language that you understand to apply to your fantasy squads. Now, to the other host of the show, Ike, what's going on? What's popping?
What's going on? What's going on? You can find me on Twitter at just_Ike09. Yeah, man. What's going on, Gene? We had a pretty mixed bag worth of fantasy output this weekend. We had a lot of bad games. We had some good games, but just kind of touching on the bad games for a second. We had some ugly ass football to start off week 10 with the Ravens and Dolphins. Like that game for 3 quarters is borderline unwatchable. Unwatchable. And Lamar Jackson kind of struggled. And then Tua was yo-yoed in and out of the lineup. He wasn't even supposed to play, and then he ended up playing. He ended up doing well. So hopefully Miami can figure that quarterback situation out going forward. And then Tom Brady off of a bye going to Washington. To the losing to the team that he almost lost to in the first round of the playoffs last year, and looks like they gave him fits again. So Tampa Bay, they got to figure some shit out in a hurry because obviously they're missing Antonio Brown, they're missing Gronk. We understand that, but Mike Evans, he still got his. Chris Godwin's kind of banged up with his foot. So we hope Tampa Bay pulls it together in the coming weeks. But then we also had a tie. We had a tie of, it was like one of the ugliest games I've ever seen. And it wasn't even an exciting game.
No.
It was a tie. It was just two bad quarterbacks just seeing how, seeing how they can outduel each other and how bad they can be. Mason Rudolph versus Jared Goff. I think at one point Jared Goff had 30 yards through like 3.5 quarters.
It
was ugly. And then Mason Rudolph had 50 pass attempts and he only threw for barely 240 yards. It was just an awful game. The only bright spot in that game were the two running backs. DeAndre Swift had 36 touches. That's what we love to see. If you're a DeAndre Swift fantasy owner, you have been waiting for this moment when he has the backfield all to himself. He played the majority of the snaps. He had over a 25% target share. And obviously he got at least 80% of the running back rushes. So what more could you have asked for? And then on the other side, Najee Harris has been balling all year. He's the RB4 in PPR, and they continue to feed him. But outside of that, that's pretty much all you can say about that game. It was just bad.
Yeah, it was bad. It's like, you saw Ray McLeod. He was the featured wide receiver for the Steelers.
Oh man!
And then anytime that I'm looking, I'm like, all right, Detroit. I've seen somebody running down the field to score like a 60-yard touchdown. I'm like, okay, DeAndre Swift. Then I see the number on the back. I was like, what is this? Like this dude getting snakes for touchdowns, man.
I think that was his only carry of the game.
Yeah.
I think Jamar Jefferson had a long touchdown run.
Yeah, and then he got hurt.
2 carries.
Yep.
And then Godwin had 3 or 4 carries, and he had one long run for a touchdown. So it was a weird game. I'm glad it's over. Glad we don't have to see those two play again. Those two quarterbacks play against each other again because it was just awful. And speaking of awful, Russell Wilson made his return to action this past Sunday, and he was awful. He was just as bad as those two quarterbacks we described. Only 50% completions. His QBR was 13. That's not good. That's not
No.
good. Seems bad. Seems bad, right? He threw 2 interceptions. And this was actually the first time in the Pete Carroll era that they were actually shut out. Believe it or not. So it was just all bad for the Seahawks, and Russell Wilson's first return to action. And then per PFF, I saw this stat on Twitter. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, they were the top 2 receivers on the week in most unrealized air yards.
I believe it.
So Russell Wilson he was off target early and often in that game. And hopefully they can just use this game as to shake the rust off and potentially burn the tape, and then hopefully next week against Arizona they can get back on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, all his throws were high, man. Like just every single last one of them.
Yeah,
he was out there throwing some Tupacs. Let me see you toss it up. See who comes.
Hail
Who come Let me see you toss it up. It just it was bad. Like the game was just bad. Period. Like I didn't know what the the Packers were doing play calling wise. Like it was a weird game. Like it didn't make any sense.
And I made a point on Twitter about like I was so frustrated watching the game because both offensive play callers were just playing scared, essentially. And both of those defenses they can be had. Like they have weaknesses.
The secondaries of those teams are not good.
They're middle of the pack at best. So I mean, I just didn't understand like the game plans between the two. Between the two teams, it was just odd overall. Just odd.
Man. Yeah, let's stop talking about these trash games. Let's get to some good stuff. So like, I mean, there was like we had the scrub. Like, it was almost like the stars and scrubs of games. So like we talked about the scrubs. Now let's get to the stars, man.
Let's get to the stars, please.
There was a lot of get right games for some teams, like our Dallas Cowboys. They had a get right spot with Atlanta. I know Vegas had us wondering what was going on because the line was dropping on Sunday, but
didn't matter.
It didn't matter. Dak went out there. He had almost 300, 3 touchdowns. One of those touchdowns was a rushing touchdown at the end. CD Lamb got right with his 6 for 94, 2 touchdowns. Nobody struggles. I mean, we kept going on 4th down, kept converting on 4th down. You saw Zeke get right. You saw Pollard get right. Like everybody was good. Gallup's first game back. It looked good. He had a 14% target share, 35% of the total air yards for the game. These are all good numbers for your third wide receiver coming back from injury. But I will say, like, and we did see the him coming in was, it was a down tick for like, a little small down tick for like Cooper, but a big one for Schultz, which was expected. He only had 6% of target share with only 2 targets. Granted, it wasn't a blowout, but this should be something to be expected for people that own Schultz. Like, we're not going to get the elite numbers that we were seeing before Gallup got hurt.
Yeah, he was over 20% target share in those, I think, 5 weeks that Gallup was out. So obviously I don't think it's going to remain at 6% going forward, but I would temper your expectations for the rest of the season for Dalton Schultz if you do own him, because since Michael Gallup is back, there's just going to be too many mouths to feed in that offense. It'll be volatile week to week. We know that CD's probably going to get his more often than not. Cooper as well, but we'll probably see Gallup. We'll maybe even see Gallup. Be a wide receiver, have a couple of wide receiver 1 weeks. But yeah, you'll just have to temper your expectations.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Another team that got right was your Buffalo Bills. Justin Allen, we went 366, 2 touchdowns. Diggs woke up. He finally caught a long pass, something that he had been missing this whole season compared to last year. 8 for 162 and a touchdown, 13 targets. The targets have always been there, just not the yards. This past week, he had 46% of the target share and 40% of the air yards. So they did what they were supposed to do, man. They understood the assignment.
The assignment,
versus the Jets.
So, there was just a bunch. There was like this one play where Diggs had like a stutter go. he was open immediately and just ran down the
Mhm.
sideline for like a 50,
Yeah.
60-yard gain. It was just beautiful. It was just a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
just I enjoy watching Stephon Diggs run routes because he's one of the best in the business. And it's good to finally see him get have that big get right game that we've been waiting. Most of you that drafted him in the second round, and this is kind of what you've been looking for. Now, granted, it's been 10 weeks. No, it's been 10 weeks, but hey, maybe this is a trend, and maybe you can carry your fantasy teams on through the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, granted, I mean the fantasy numbers have been down compared to last year, but they're still really good. So it's not like he's been sinking the ship on your team if you have him.
Yeah.
We even saw Gabriel Davis get in the game because Beasley was hurt and he was. I mean, at the end of the game, I think he ended up having like 3 for like 80.
It was 3 for 105. It was
Oh
3 for
yeah, that's
105.
right. He had
Yeah.
that long, yeah. And then I mean, we even saw something called Matt Breida even get in the game and score a touchdown. Like,
I think he played like 12 snaps, or yeah, he played like between 12 and 15 snaps and had 2 touchdowns. So it was just the Bills, they did whatever they wanted. I think the
yeah,
Jets, like going forward on these on the shows that we're going to record, we will have the Jets as a fade. The Jets defense as a fade for the rest of the season. It's going to be an auto fade. Attack the Jets defense any way you should, any way you can. If you have players that are going to go up against the Jets, I would try to trade for them if your trade deadline isn't there. Like you have to fade the Jets at all costs until they show you that they can defend. Point blank, period.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I forgot to point out the dud at the beginning of the week, that Baltimore game. Remember, we touted Mike Gesicki, and he gave us a big ass fat goose egg.
Hey. We're on the positivity now.
You're right. I just had to put that out there. But yeah,
But
go
no,
ahead.
but
Go ahead.
you're right. The process was right.
Yeah.
Baltimore had struggled all season defending tight ends, and he had 7 targets. I mean, if
Yeah.
you had asked me, hey, Mike Gesicki's gonna, if you had told me that Gesicki was going to have 7 targets against the Ravens, I mean, you would think he would have like 5 for like 65 and maybe a touchdown or something. That would be pretty reasonable. That'd be kind of on par with what he's been doing. But unfortunately, we got no catches. So next, obviously they get the Jets this week.
Get right.
to get right spot. Lightning can't strike twice. So
that's true.
We'll have to trust Gesicki this week as well. And speaking of another guy that you can trust in your lineups, that you could actually trust in your lineups, that won't give you a goose egg. We saw him play last night. His name is Deebo Samuel for the 49ers.
Oh, my goodness.
He's just as automatic as it gets as a wide receiver 1 in fantasy this year. He leads the 49ers in targets, and last night he was even playing a little bit of running back.
Yeah.
They were handing him like trap plays, toss sweeps, off tackle, shotgun
Breaking
draws.
tackles.
They were just using him all over the field, and he had 10 total touches for 133 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he had the 40-yarder in the fourth quarter to essentially put the game away.
Yeah.
But on the season, he has 979 yards receiving. He's on pace for just over 1,700. This guy is just on another planet right now. He is that 49ers offense, and Jimmy G, when he only goes through one read, it's usually Deebo Samuel or sometimes it's George Kittle, and that's it. That's the passing game for the 49ers, and it's Deebo's going to continue to feast week in and week out.
Yeah. I mean, he was. I'm surprised that the Rams didn't do anything. Like, they didn't. Like, you would have thought they would have just eventually just had Ramsey kind of shadow him. They didn't do it at all. And like that touchdown at the end of the game was just like, it was just like a free lane for him. Like, it's just like, hey, here you go. Let me give you the yellow brick road to the end zone.
The one thing that I can maybe give Kyle Shanahan some credit for is that they do move Deebo Samuel around to avoid potential shadow coverage.
And they
put him in the slot fairly often. He doesn't really play on the outside. He plays in the slot mostly. Yeah. And then he usually has like another receiver on the side of him, or another receiver inside of him. So so the corner doesn't really have an opportunity to press him out the line.
Yep.
So that's good. That's good play design. That's good good schematics on their part. So that's why you see Deebo Samuel always open.
Yeah. I mean, if only Kyle Shanigans can do this every week and get some wins. I mean, and also before, I mean, you kept hearing that McVay has not beat this dude in a lot. Like this is 5 in a row that
5 in a row.
Shanahan is beating him. So I'm just like, I don't get it, but sometimes, I mean, it's just division foe, so sometimes this is what happens.
Yeah, and speaking of always open, well, he was always open until he had to switch teams. The Rams had a new wide receiver debut for their team last night in the same game, Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
He didn't have much of an impact, although on the first play of the game, Matthew Stafford threw him a nice 7 to 8 yard stop route, which is nice. And then later on that drive, threw an interception, targeting Odell Beckham, but that was just Matthew Stafford not paying attention and just kind of chucking it up. I think if he threw the ball at a different spot, maybe there could have been a different outcome for that play. But overall, OBJ played 27% of the snaps, only had 3 targets. Two for 18 was his total line.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll have the bye this week. The Rams and the Broncos are on bye this week. So once the Rams they can take this bye week to kind of reconvene and really work OBJ into the offense, and then week 12 whenever they do return, they'll have a much better handle on how to utilize him.
Yeah, and they had good intentions. Like they had him lined up in the backfield and then they kind of flared him out, and they left Cooper Kupp wide open on the sideline for like a 20-something yard gain. Like there's definitely potential in terms of how they want to use him. They just ran into a buzzsaw last night, and so it was just playing catch up. But at some point, we're gonna have to have a conversation about the Matthew Stafford overhype, him coming to the Rams, because I mean,
it's time to start a dialogue.
Not today, but let's see what happens, man. Because it didn't. It looks like the same Matthew Stafford to me, but I'll be patient. We'll just see what happens.
And speaking of running into a buzzsaw, the Las Vegas Raiders ran into a buzzsaw on Sunday night. And that buzzsaw was the angry and pissed off and the angry and pissed off Kansas City Chiefs, because they got right. They got right. They completely violated the Raiders. Completely violated them. Like they did whatever they wanted. Travis Kelce continued his dominance over the Raiders. 8 for 119, 7 first downs. There was just even Darrel Williams had 100 yards receiving.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was insane. And then obviously Patrick Mahomes, and this is kind of segueing to our fantasy MVP of the week. Patrick Mahomes, 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's back.
Easy work, man.
Yeah, easiest of work. He was just ripping off chunk play after chunk play. He was targeting Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill had 2 touchdowns. 83 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. And Patrick Mahomes is obviously, he vaulted right back into his overall QB1 in fantasy. He had other people hold that spot for a couple weeks until he was ready to take it back. And now I think we're gonna see the Mahomes that we saw earlier in the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the Raiders just ignored what teams did like the last month.
Yeah,
they just like, hey, we're not gonna play cover 2. We're just gonna kind of, do our own thing, piss down our legs. Don't watch film. Not show up for the moment, basically.
Pretty much. Yeah.
in front of everybody's wives on Sunday night football, just don't care. It's just but I will say, let's see what happens. Like that, they got the Cowboys this coming week at home, and then
that's gonna be that's gonna be a hell of a game. A hell of a game. It's gonna be a shootout.
Yeah,
points everywhere.
Yeah.
Points all over the place.
Yeah.
and
So
I can't wait to see that.
let me give it a couple more weeks before I say like, okay, they figured it out because I mean the
Yeah, I mean,
Raiders
it's good to see them, like, kinda get back on track
that's
for
true. That's
sure.
true. That's true.
But yeah, like you're right. We want to see them, string together a couple of performances in a row to really
Yeah.
convince everybody. Okay, this is the Chiefs team that
Yeah.
everybody basically picked to go back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but you could tell they got smart. Like they were like you said, they were throwing dump offs to Darrel. That's what you're supposed to. That's what they give you in cover two. So you take it.
Yeah.
And then when they started coming shading the covers, then that's when they were eating them up with Kelsey, eating them
Hmm.
with Tyreek. Like it was just easy work. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But we also got our least valuable player of the week. And that goes to your guy Baker
That's not my guy at all. No.
Mayfield. Uh,
Do not gaslight the audience. That is not my guy whatsoever.
yeah. So this guy only mustered up 73 passing yards, touchdown, and an interception before he left the game. At first I thought it was a shoulder injury, but apparently he hurt his knee.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a knee injury.
yeah. He only mustered up 11 yards on one target, one catch for all of his wide receivers combined. Case Keenum had more yards in not even basically a quarter and some
A quarter and
change.
some change. I think he played
Yeah,
most of the second half.
yeah,
But
quarter and some
he had
change.
more passing yards than
Yeah,
Baker.
he just looked helpless, like he just didn't know what he was doing. It's weird. Like you have the week after they get rid of Odell, they look like the Monstars, and then the next week they look like the glass shoe fell off, man. Like it just
Yeah,
it's weird watching them sometimes, man. Like they
yeah,
just I don't know. Their offense is a little funky, but
yeah,
hopefully they figured it out.
yeah, yeah. We'll see what happens. Maybe, I think Baker was listed as day to day with his knee injury, and I think he's expected to start next week. So,
Yeah,
hopefully, they have the Lions coming in.
get right
Everybody
spot.
seems to get right against right. Everybody seems to get right against them. So
Yeah,
we'll see if anybody can get right against them. It's got to be the Browns, right?
yeah, yeah. And
So
we'll be talking about them a little bit later. So,
yeah, absolutely.
now now we are the part of the show where my favorite segment, cap or no cap. For the people that do not know what cap means, that's basically another word for saying you're lying. So if I was to say like, hey, I don't got no glasses on right now, Ike will say that's
Cap, big
yep,
cap.
because I'm definitely wearing glasses right now.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna give him a statement. He's gonna say no cap or cap, argue his points. If I go against it, then I'm gonna get my point across too. And if I agree, then we just keep it moving. So my first one, Ike, AJ Dillon. This is somebody that I've been talking about for a couple of weeks now, and now it's his time. AJ, not Aaron Jones is gonna be out for probably 2 weeks before their bye. Is AJ Dillon a RB1 the next 2 weeks before their bye? Cap or
Oh,
no cap?
that's absolutely no cap. He's definitely going to be an RB1 over the next couple of weeks. He looked pretty good. When Aaron Jones got hurt, he was carrying the load. He even
Yeah.
caught a nice little route in the flat, or pass in the flat, and turned it up for
Mhm.
like 50 yards. He broke like multiple tackles, and that was one thing that he did well in college. He broke a lot of tackles, and he's pretty explosive. So that that's definitely no cap. He gets Minnesota this week, and they're 31st in rush EPA per play. So on a per play basis, they basically give up a lot of yards.
Mhm.
And then they have the Rams the following week, and there's 20th in rush EPA per play. So the last 3 weeks he's had 45 carries for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns, 17 first downs, 16 red zone rushes, and a 53% snap share. That now obviously that's a little skewed because of last week, and Aaron Jones got hurt and he missed a good portion of like the second half. But again, like they've been increasing this guy's workload, even though his overall snaps haven't been up to par, what we would like to see. but they've been increasing his carries over the last several weeks, and he's like the perfect guy to have, at least right now. As they make a playoff push, as they try to at least hold on to I think they're the top seed in the NFC, correct?
Yep, correct. Right now
Yeah,
they are.
they're 8-2. Yeah, they're 8-2. So as long as they're near the top, they're gonna ride AJ Dillon because he's got the body for it. Definitely, he can
Yeah.
he can withstand a lot of punishment. And as much as we love Aaron Jones, as much as I love Aaron Jones in particular, he's gotten banged up here over the last couple of years here and there. I mean, it's not, he hasn't missed like a ton of time, but he always seems to have some sort of lower body injury. His most recent injury is a sprained MCL. He's already done that a couple of times early on in his career. I think last year he had a calf injury, so he's had these little nicks and bruises, as of late. But yeah, AJ Dillon is definitely going to be an RB1 over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
and we won't see Aaron Jones until after the bye.
yeah, after the bye for
If they're
sure.
smart. So week 14 is the next time you guys will see Aaron Jones
Versus Chicago, yeah.
for Chicago. Yep.
And maybe Mac might be back for Chicago by then too. So
Yeah.
But yeah, I concur. Like I said before, this is something I've been seeing. You've been seeing the uptick, and I mean, he looks good, man. Like somebody that's 6 foot 250, the way he moves, like, and it's starting to get cold. Like that's not somebody you want to hit. We might see like Derrick Henry light for the next 2 weeks, depending on how
Derrick Henry light, yeah.
depending on how this
Not,
goes.
that's not a far-fetched comparison.
Yeah, so we'll see. And McFleur, I mean, this is something he likes. Like I've said before, this is something he keeps talking about. Now he gets to show everybody what it really looks like when he's the featured guy. So
yeah, as I mentioned last week, he was in love with his thighs. Always talked about his thighs. So yeah, he's got really big, thick legs. Blah blah. That's enough.
We get it.
We get it. Yeah, exactly. We can see. We have eyes. We can see.
Yeah. All right. The next one, cap or no cap. Darrel Williams, is he the starter when CEH comes back?
I think he should be. I think he should be the starter. Darrel Williams, the starter when CEH gets back. Right now I'm going to say no cap until I see it not be the case.
Yeah.
He's looked good in relief of CEH, man. Like I think there was a couple of stats that I saw on Twitter about him, having a higher running back rush share, a higher target share, a higher touch share overall, all higher than what CEH has gotten all season long. I think in the games that CEH has played, he's got 10 total targets, and in the last game that Darrel Williams played, this past Sunday, he had over 10 targets. He had 9 catches for over 100 yards. So for whatever reason, they seem to trust Darrel Williams in the passing game, and they don't trust CEH in the passing game, or they don't want to throw to him in the passing game, which is, I don't know. It's odd to me because that's essentially why they drafted CEH, because that was his big calling card at LSU. He was an elite pass catching back with great lateral quickness. And it just doesn't seem like they're utilizing that skill set of his in the NFL, and they're finding other backs to fill that void. So I think it's no cap for now until we see CEH back in the lineup, and then we see if CEH is going to start, or we'll see what the snap share looks like.
Yeah, I want to just lean cap just because I feel like when CH comes back, they're probably gonna go back to what they're pretty much were doing with splitting them. It, like you said, it is very weird that they rather use Darrel in the passing game than CH. I don't know, maybe Darrel pass protection is better than him. Outside of that, I don't get it, because I know CH catches the ball better than him. That was his thing. Like that's him.
Yeah.
So it's just weird that their usages are different, but CH is more of that, almost that scat back type build. So
yeah,
I'll weigh on the cap side until we see what they do once he gets back.
Yeah.
All right. The next one, Courtland Sutton, is he droppable? Cap or no cap?
Um,
Mm.
Courtland Sutton droppable. That is a really good one, man. It kind of pains me to really say this, but I think he is droppable. So I think it's no cap. Because as long as Jerry Jeudy's back in that offense, and you have Albert O, you have Noah Fant, you have Tim Patrick. This guy's not getting targets. Now he's on the field over 85% of the snaps on a week-to-week basis, but he's just not getting targets. In 4 games with Jerry Jeudy, he has 6 catches on 12 targets for just 92 yards and no touchdowns. That's in 4 games.
That's
In 4
crazy.
games. He was doing that without Jerry Jeudy on numerous occasions. He had a big game against Jacksonville. He had a big game against Pittsburgh without Jerry Jeudy, but with Jeudy in the lineup, he's just out there running wind sprints. He's getting some nice cardio.
Yeah.
He has a 9 in those 4 games. He has a 9% target share, 9.7% target share. So for a guy that you had drafted in maybe like the 5th or 6th round, he's not returning that value back to you. So I think you can. He is droppable. I mean, look, they're going into a bye week this week. Maybe see what happens after the bye, and then if it continues, the same pattern continues, then drop him. But I don't know. He is certainly on the drop on my drop list for sure.
Yeah, that's for me is no cap. Like, I mean, this is part of the season. Like, if you're fighting for a fantasy spot, for a fantasy playoff spot, man, like this is roster gymnastics time. So if he ain't producing, then you gotta let him go. You don't have. I mean, like you said, 4 games, six receptions. Like, you would think he's like a bum or something, but I mean, you got Teddy B as your quarterback, so that's already like you're already behind the 8 ball with that. And Teddy B only he loves throwing to Albert O and Fant, and then he loves throwing
Tim Patrick
when he gets near the end zone or if he needs a long play.
Yeah,
and Jerry Jeudy. Doesn't seem like there's enough for him to support. Yeah, so unless somebody gets hurt, you definitely can't start him. So
and to your point about roster gymnastics, like it's at the end of the day, it's about people producing. If you're not producing, and you're still trotting these guys out because of their name value, you gotta reevaluate your strategy. It's game over name at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if there's a trend of somebody producing, get that guy in your lineup and get the guy who has somewhat of a brand equity out of your lineup, because he's killing your team. And I have a lot of teams with a lot of guys that have name value, and they're just not producing. And I'm going to be making some changes very soon this week. And I know you're laughing, but you know what leagues I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I'll probably be hitting you up for a couple of trades. So it's going to be quite the week.
I mean, you did decline one of them, but we'll see what happens with that side note.
But that's the message. Like, if you guys have anybody who's not producing and he has a big name, you'll just get another guy in there that's producing, man. Like, try to trade him for someone else that's actually putting up numbers.
Yeah. There has to be at least one person that just likes names. So try to see.
We have them in every league. You have to exploit those people in every single league that you got them.
Definitely. All right, last one. Cam Newton. I know people got excited about him with his first 2 touches, 2 touchdowns.
Oh, this is gonna
back.
Be good.
Yeah, I'm back.
I'm back.
Yeah. All right. So, is he a QB1 the rest of the way? I mean, the schedule kind of starts off favorable for him, but it does get a little tough at the end. But is this somebody that you can plug in your lineups and just let it ride? Cap or no cap?
It's cap for right now. We haven't seen much from him right now. So now we saw first 2 touches were touchdowns, like you mentioned, and when he gets the reins, we don't know how he's going to be able to feed DJ Moore, feed Robbie Anderson. Obviously he has two pretty good matchups coming up. He has Washington football team, and then they've been giving up the ass to every quarterback that they faced, every running back that they faced, every wide receiver that they faced. And they just lost Chase Young for the season due to a torn ACL.
And then Marquez Sweat is already gone too.
Yeah, so that defense is already weak, and they just got weaker. And then they have the Miami Dolphins. Now the Miami Dolphins, they were a plus matchup for most offenses. It's outside of the last couple of weeks when they've been playing fairly well against the Texans and the Ravens. But we haven't seen enough from Cam to really lean one way or the other. But as of right now, I think it's Cap until we see see him with a full week of practice. A full week with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson and Terrace Marshall and CMC. We need to see him with a full week with that offense before we make a true determination of Cam's rest of season outlook.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I know when we first saw him get picked back up, I know we had some banter over one of our fantasy groups. I did say something a little outlandish.
You did
when I said that that him and Sam Darnold are pretty much the same. I boosted that, but I will say that I'm definitely reserved about the excitement with him because the last time we saw him, that dude was throwing dirt balls to first base whenever they called like 8-yard curl routes in front of him. Like he couldn't throw the ball, so I need to see it. I mean, he does have these two get at least the Washington game for sure, where you can do what you want in terms of throwing the ball, but I definitely need to see it before I get excited. I am happy that one of our pretty much legends. This is somebody we grew up with as we're going through college. Like this is dude we were watching. So
yeah,
it's definitely good to see somebody like him, get another shot and get excited. I mean, you get excited when you watch him play. Like that's just his energy. So I'm definitely happy to see him.
Yeah, and like just to your point about energy, like you could just tell that the Carolina Panthers they have a different swagger about them now. And just to be fair, he's easily an upgrade over Sam Darnold because like it can't get any worse than what we saw from Sam Darnold. It just can't. You know what I'm saying? Like, so like you said, time will tell. Time will tell. What he ends up doing. But I think overall, it's an upgrade for all the pass catchers involved.
In definitely. Which leads us to our next segment, which is waiver wire pickups. Cam Newton, like if you need a quarterback, this is a guy you can go pick up because not only that he gives you points just by just running, period, because he's gonna run. So you do every time, like depending on the type of scoring league you play, 40 yards can get you, that's another point. 60 yards get you another point. Like that's a touchdown. So that's a valuable asset you can have if they use him the way we think he should be used. Another quarterback you should be looking to add at least for this week if you're in need of quarterback help, your boy Mac Daddy Jones. The dude looks good, man. Like there's no other way to put it. He looks good. He playing Atlanta in the dome. He has experience playing with Alabama. They always played in there, and he always looked good. So no, if looking for a secondary to exploit, you need a quarterback. Mac Daddy Jones is another person you can pick up.
Yeah. Oh, and another quarterback you can pick up is Tua. They have the Jets. Definitely,
right.
Tua in plus matchups. In week 6 and 7, he finishes a QB1. So I get that he played the Jags and the Falcons, are the Falcons that we talked about that Mac Jones is playing against. The Jets, they're last in pass DVOA, and they just gave up 366 yards to Josh Allen. So that's easily a guy that you can pick up from the waiver wire. He's going to be starting going forward, and you saw him on Thursday night. He was making some good throws despite having that broken finger.
Yeah.
You can do a lot worse than Tua this week off the waiver wire, off the thin waiver wire.
Very thin.
Yeah.
And then some running backs that we can touch on real quick. Wayne Gallman, We saw Cordell Patterson. He didn't play much of the second half due to his ankle injury. I don't know what's that going to look like for him on Thursday, but when Gallman,
he didn't. I think they have some projected practice participation today, and I don't think he participated. So I think he's still being evaluated right now. So as of now, I would plan for him being out. I would plan for him being out.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, and then in relief, I mean, Wayne Gallman had the most touches in that second half. Like he surpassed Mike Jones. I mean, not Mike Jones, Mike Davis.
Who?
He had 15 for 55. So they're definitely looking for. He's at least going to be carrying the rock.
Don't you just feel bad for Mike Davis? Like it seems like.
Do we?
I was being nice. I was trying to be nice. But no, I mean, we've known from the very beginning that Mike Davis was pretty much a jag, and his job wasn't safe. He was just a placeholder, basically a placeholder, starting running back in the league, and CPAT usurped him, and then Wayne Gallman usurped him this week. So then just to add a little extra on that, Wayne Gallman had 23 snaps versus 20 to Mike Davis and outcarried him 15-4. And while Matt Ryan was in the game, Gallman had eight touches and Mike Davis only had 4. While Matt Ryan, the starting quarterback, was in the game. So that's telling. That's telling on Mike Davis. I saw a lot of opinions saying, oh, well, they were just resting Mike Davis because it's a blowout. It's like, you're not resting him. You're not resting Mike Davis. They've been resting him.
You've been resting him the whole year?
Yeah, pretty much. Like it's just, I think it's just another way for people to make excuses for Mike Davis, thinking that they have something because he played so well in relief of Christian McCaffrey last year. So they're still holding on to that. But it's over.
It's over.
It's over. Mike Davis is done. So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Another running back, Deontay Foreman. I know when we saw Derrick Henry got hurt, we were scrambling. We were thinking McNichols was going to be the guy or Peterson. We didn't really pay attention to Foreman. Here we are 2 weeks later. Looks like Deontay might be the guy. He led the Titans in snaps, carries, yards last week. I mean, not even last week, combined the last 2 weeks. He's been leading them. So it looks like he's the guy to own. So if he's out there, go and get him. If you definitely, I know you can never have too many running backs for sure getting this late in the season. So that's another running back. If AJ Dillon, for whatever reason's available, he should be the top ad. Go get him. I don't need to say nothing
whatever
else.
Whatever you have left in your fab, use it on AJ Dillon. If he's there. Now, first off, if your league still has AJ Dillon on waivers, that's an amateur league, and you need to hopefully you enjoy your championship once you win it, and then leave that league as soon as you're done. But yeah, like we said, AJ Dillon, if he's available, get him. And then we'll just touch on one more. Jeff Wilson. We just got news that Elijah Mitchell was diagnosed with a fractured finger, and he's supposed to have surgery. So he's supposed to have some pins put into his finger. So we don't know the extent of it. And Jeff Wilson was already getting some run, during the game, in tandem with Elijah Mitchell. So he can be in line for a heavy workload. For whatever reason, the 49ers coaching staff is going out of their way to not play Trey Sermon. So those of you who drafted Trey Sermon in the 6th round this year, yikes, big yikes. It's probably not going to happen for him this year. He was, some progress. He was actually dressed. He was actually in uniform last night. We actually saw him standing behind Kyle Shanahan. So maybe next week he may get used, maybe on special teams.
Maybe if they don't activate Hasty because he wasn't inactive. So
that's right.
Maybe they might use him instead.
Forget what I just said. On to receivers, just real quick. We'll touch on a couple. Marcus Johnson for the Titans. He's been producing. Since Julio's been out. With Julio on IR, his target share with Julio out of the lineup has been 15.6%, 22.2%. and 23.8%. And that's 3 games without Julio in the lineup. And then he just had a 5 for 100 yard game, 5 catches for 100 yards this past week against the Saints, and he gets Houston this week, a much easier matchup. So that's some guy that you can go out and target on your waiver wire, and he's gonna at least give you some decent numbers over the next couple of weeks until Julio gets back. And even when Julio gets back, it's not a guarantee that Julio's going to stay on the field because he hasn't been able to all season long. And then our last wide receiver is Kendrick Bourne for the Patriots. They're playing the Falcons this week, and Bourne he's had his moments this year. He's wide receiver 32 on the season, and he's coming off of his best game of the year with 24.1 PPR points, 4 for 98 and a touchdown, and then he added 3 rushes for 43 yards. So he's still playing behind Nelson Aguilar and Jacoby Myers, but he's pretty efficient with his opportunities. So I would definitely look to pick him up on waivers.
Yeah, and I mean, for tight end, I don't really. I mean, at this point, I know Dan Arnold shouldn't be available. Conklin shouldn't be available. Freiermuth shouldn't be available. Maybe Cole Kmet if he's available. I mean, that could be somebody that in a pinch spot.
He just had a 100-yard game against the Steelers 2 weeks ago, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he had like 8 targets.
Yeah,
last week when they played before their bye. So it looks like Justin Fields is starting to get a little more into playing in NFL, and he's been definitely looking at Cole Kmet. So if you need a tight end, that's somebody you can use. So
yeah.
Our next segment, we talk about matchups that we can exploit, aka barbecue chicken. If you don't know what barbecue chicken or where that comes from, if you watched the NBA on TNT Inside the NBA, the preview pre-show before they play games, Shaq is on there whenever they show a matchup of somebody cooking somebody, killing somebody. He always says barbecue chicken alert.
Yep.
So any matchup that you can exploit in a bad way, that's who we want to attack. Those are the type of players that we want to start and play against. The first matchup I have is Tua versus the Jets. Like we said, and waiver wire. This is a good streamer for this week. This is like we say in plus matchups. Tua has been really, really good. Week 6 and 7, he was quarterback 1. Jets are last in pass DVOA, and they just gave up almost 400 yards to Josh Allen. This is also a good spot for. Supposed to be a good spot for Gaskins because the Jets give up the most yards, the most fantasy points to running backs. But I mean, Myles Gaskins plays with plays in front of behind a very, very bad Miami O-line. So you can start him with caution, but for sure you can start Tua, you can start Waddle, you can start Gesicki. Versus this bad defense for sure.
Don't shoot us if he gets it done 0.
Yeah,
the process is right. The process is right. Look at the teams they're playing. You just got to follow the data. Follow the trends. These teams have been bad giving up yards and points to all these positions. So all we can do is just follow the points, follow the trail.
Yep. Another spot that looks really good is Brandon Cooks versus the Titans secondary. I know the Titans their defenses look better in terms of bringing pressure to a quarterback, but the Titans do give up the most points per game to the wide receiver position. I know Cooks, I think he's over 31% target share for the year, which is elite.
Yeah.
So
he's getting elite level usage. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And Tyrod will look to him as often as he can. So if you have Brandon Cooks, you can definitely start him with confidence.
Yeah. And a couple more matchups we have here. Our boy Rain Dakota Prescott, first of his name, against that Chiefs defense. The Chiefs defense, they've looked good the last couple of weeks, but they haven't played. They played Derek Carr and they played Jordan Love. But they have not played Dak Prescott, and Dak Prescott is finally he got his groove. He got his groove back last week against the Falcons. The Chiefs are still giving up the second most points to the quarterback position, and they are still 30th in pass DVOA. So they are still not good overall. So, and that's a matchup that we can expect the Cowboys to exploit, and they will be probably throwing the ball a lot this week to to keep pace with that Kansas City offense that kind of found their footing last week. Another one that we can look at is the Cleveland run game versus Detroit. Detroit's 29th in rush DVOA, and they give up 135.7 yards per game. And Cleveland is tied for first in the league with 154.1 yards per game rushing. And they should be getting Nick Chubb back in the lineup. He missed last week due to COVID. So him and D'Ernest Johnson, who's played really well in relief of Nick Chubb a couple of times this year. They should run all over the Detroit Lions, defense, and they just surrendered over 100 yards or nearly 100 yards to Najee Harris last week.
Yeah, and one last matchup, like we talked about before, the Panthers offense versus the Washington defense. The Washington football team, they give up the most points to the quarterback position and the second most to the wide receiver position, and they're 29th in pass DVOA. So you can definitely start. You can start Cam. You can start DJ Moore. You can definitely start CMC. If you feel a little frisky, a little dangerous, you can start still Robbie.
If you woke up feeling dangerous,
yeah, you can start Robbie Anderson also if you want. But yeah, they should definitely get some yardage versus that defense.
Yeah.
In our last segment of the show, here in Texas, we can't gamble legally, which sucks. Hopefully they get that corrected soon. Yeah. But one thing, how we get our skin in the game is betting on player props. Player props, I mean, they go pretty much hand in hand with fantasy these days, because I mean, this is what people use in terms of projections, and you combine these with your fantasy lineups in terms of like feeling good or bad about potentially playing this player in your lineup. So we apply that, and then I mean we go to Prize Picks to make our player prop bets. You can parlay two players, 3 players, 4 players, or 5 players. So here's some of the players that we're interested in playing this week that we felt really good about the lines that they showed on Prize Picks. My first one was CMC over 49.5 receiving yards. CMC, outside of the week 3 where he got hurt in the first quarter versus Houston, every game that he's played and finished, he hasn't finished under 54 receiving yards per game. And then this past week, you just saw him have 9 catches for 80 something yards. So I think that's without question, that's easy work for him. So
yeah,
that's one player I'm looking.
I anticipate that line moving up a little bit throughout the week, but that's, if you can lock that in right now, I would lock it in like immediately. Yeah. Wherever you gamble, lock that in ASAP.
Yeah. And my other one was Kyle Pitts under 65.5 receiving yards. Why I chose this one is because they're playing against New England. You know what New England is infamous for? They want to get rid of your number one option on this offense. Even if Cordell Patterson is playing, they will be focusing on getting rid of Kyle Pitts. New England's defense, ever since Dak blessed them, they've been tops in terms of passing yards given up per game. So, and then also they give up the 3rd lowest fantasy points to the tight end position at 6.3 points per game. So
yeah,
go ahead and like that one also.
Yeah, so a couple that I have. The first one I'll touch on is Justin Fields over 189.5 passing yards. We did briefly touch on Justin Fields kind of coming into his own a little bit. He is coming off of a 291-yard game against the Steelers on that Monday Night Football game. And they're going against the Ravens this week, who they're 24th in pass DVOA, and they are completely banged up in the secondary. They've had injuries all season long. I think they've had at least 10 players on IR, most of them on defense, and they give up the most pass yards per game in the NFL. So they're 32nd in pass yards given up per game, and they're also 4th worst in yards per pass attempt. And why that's important is that Fields he's been he has quite a high ADOT throwing the ball down the field. He's had a couple of games where he's had at least 12, 15-yard ADOT. I think this past game against the Steelers, I think his ADOT was like 15 yards down the field.
Mm-hmm.
So he was taking shots, and I think this is another game that he's going to be taking some more shots down the field. Um, and then in that same game, they're playing the Ravens. On the other side, I have Hollywood Brown over 57.5 yards receiving. He's hit this number in 6 of 9 games this year. And the Bears, they are the 11th best matchup for wide receivers. And obviously, Lamar Jackson loves targeting Hollywood Brown. He'll get a couple of deep shots, deep opportunities in this game, and I think Hollywood should have no problem hitting this 57.5 yard number.
Yo, people. So, that's all we got for the show this week. Hopefully we give y'all some information that y'all could take, apply to your lineups, get ready for picking up waiver wire pickups tomorrow or whenever day it is. Ike, you got anything else for us?
Yeah, we're getting late in the season. We're entering week 11. Your teams, your margin for error is very, very slim now. So make moves, be smart. Don't rely on name value any longer. You can rely on name value in the middle part of the season, but now you're either producing or you're not. Just get rid of the players that aren't producing and usher in a new era of people who are producing. So yeah, just hopefully you guys got gained a lot of knowledge and got a lot of good information from us this week. And again, follow us on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at just_ico9, and follow Gene at Fantasy Genes GENES, and then follow the show at Off the Line FF on Twitter.
Yeah, if you like the content that we're saying that we're producing, please hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, share with your friends, comment below. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Just search under Destination Devi. You can also follow us on our fantasy off the line fantasy football channel on YouTube. We'll be back next week talking to you good people. Until then, be safe. Go get some W's.